All right.
You made it. That's right.
I want to thank Don for calling me this morning, and telling me he wasn't gonna make it, because I'm like, shit, I got a meeting. Ah, dude. Yeah, I know. Hold them out all day. Don makes me calendar. Problem is, I have too many email addresses, I have too many calendars, so I'm trying to consolidate them. You get everything moved to one, and then it's not gonna be impossible to do, so. I'm not a fan of Google. I really like Outlook, but my Outlook is just kind of bad, so. Anyway, appreciate everybody showing up and we're presenting today, kind of the findings thus far. On the task for the subcommittees. And Nancy wasn't gonna be here. She sent out the summary report from the discretionary formula. I don't know, Brad, if you felt comfortable.
Yeah, I can give.
I could read what she wrote, but I've not studied enough to give the high level. I know you were in the.
Yeah, not like Gary correct me on anything I get wrong, but we, Nancy gave a good summary, that Kelly's welcome to share with everyone. We sat down and chatted with Michelle, had a good conversation there, just sort of covers the basics of, the minimums where the discretionary, formula applies, kind of a little bit of the background in history, a conversation about, the different percentages because, different, jurisdictions across the state, as you probably know, have implemented different formulas. So the percentages vary widely across jurisdictions. There are some commonalities, but they do vary fairly substantially. And where we left was what we were going to take a look at, a bit more information that Michelle was working on. And she sent me an email actually yesterday with some of it to try to understand better the fiscal impact in Yankton County. So it's one thing to say, here are the percentages. What was harder to quantify or what's never been quantified is, well, what does that actually mean in terms of potential revenue? I mean, and one of the bits of perhaps confusion is when Michelle talks about it from an equalization standpoint, she's thinking about it in terms of assessed value. Well, that number is obviously much, much larger than the potential tax revenue that comes off of those numbers. So what we wanted to work on is to understand the numbers better, understand what that would look like in different variations of the discretionary formula in terms of actual taxes payable rather than just how much value we're talking about. And then we wanted to do, if we could, and that's where Michelle is trying to get us some parcel level data, because I said we could use the resources we have at the City of Yankton and our IT staff to map some of that. Maybe it would help us to understand where it was at. Michelle pointed out that a significant, or at least I don't know, I don't know the amounts. I don't want to say significant or a majority or what percentage, but agricultural development receives the discretionary formula as well, which I don't know that folks have thought a whole lot about. And the minimum for agriculture to receive it is substantially lower than for commercial. So we wanted to do a little bit of mapping and maybe sort of show a distribution of where the discretionary formula is applied, and hopefully, if there were a change, what that would look like and how it would affect agriculture and commercial properties the same or different, or if it's about adjusting both the percentages or the minimums, because the minimums haven't been changed in decades. So
Is it promoted to people when they make the decision to buy?
So what Michelle's answer to, so I'll give two answers, my answer and Michelle's answer. Michelle's answer would be, especially for smaller properties in agriculture, most folks many folks are not aware they're receiving it. Gary, is that fair? Is that a fair representation
that's
of what
fair.
Michelle said?
Yeah.
That folks, especially at lower dollar amounts, are not aware of it. At larger multi-million-dollar projects, they're absolutely aware of it and having conversations with Michelle about how it works and when it's being applied, and what the dates are, and how the assessment. So at the upper level of development, absolutely. At the lower level of development, probably not.
On one hand, if taken away, the ones are getting it anyway, it's not necessarily a negative to new people coming in, but people understood, hey, wait a minute. You know, you give something to bigger companies, but not smaller companies, and that can be seen as a negative.
Right, and that was one of the things Michelle said is that's a potential. I mean, she said
Sure.
that's a potential.
Sure.
Now, how many people would know it was taken away from them?
Right.
They know when they pay their tax bill.
Well, I mean,
But new people coming in, new
Oh, they,
buyers would never know.
right, and the way the law works, to be clear, it wouldn't be taken away from anybody. It would be new projects would not be eligible for. It's probably a better way of saying, if you've already started down the chain of the discretionary formula, you follow it all the way out to the end. If it would be a new project, then it wouldn't apply to that new project. But yeah, there's, you know, and she emphasized that in agriculture, that might be a greater perception than in the commercial sector because the existing minimum is so low. That could be perceived as a negative, an action that disproportionately negatively impacts agricultural producers.
does it apply to residential?
No, except for commercial multifamily, so large commercial multifamily, not single family dwellings.
But it does for anything over what, 10 units?
Because they're classified, it's a dollar amount, so we're talking about 30,000, 10,000 and 30,000.
Yeah.
But that was adopted at the time. That's part of our conversation. There's no recommendations, but part of our conversation is when state, that's the minimum set in state law. And I was gonna look back before this meeting. I apologize. I was thinking the 70s.
I think so, yeah.
$10,000 and $30,000 in the 1970s or 1980s is a different dollar amount than 10,000 or 30,000 today.
Yeah. That dollar amount is representative of the investment?
Yes.
Yes.
$10,000 doesn't get you quite so far in a building project as it did.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, Gary?
No, I think I didn't see your report, but I think that's excuse me, pretty much what we discussed, so.
And I'll forward that Nancy's report as soon as I can figure out my email. I'll figure it out.
So we're gonna try to crunch more data and working with Michelle, but not trying to lean on her too hard because she's got a regular job to do in addition to generating some reports for us.
Yeah.
So could I ask that as a note taker that anybody who has a written report that you forward that to me, and I'll consolidate it all into one.
Okay, very good. Good, any questions for Brad?
You know, overall, would you get any sense? I mean, it doesn't sound like a real moneymaker for the county.
So I've seen Michelle's initial report. I need to dig into it more, but in terms of, we want to talk about millions of additional dollars. Depending on the year, we're talking about
Hundreds of thousands?
tens of thousands or approaching 100,000. I need to dig in a little more. We're talking about a relatively small.
So part of this, part of Nancy's push for, giving it some priority is it might be an easy win.
Yeah.
A quick, easy win that, that helps.
And what I think we'd like to, before I'm being a little cagey about my answer because if the minimums were raised, it could be that a number of the project, I don't know what percentage of the projects are relatively small projects. If they're in I don't know, we wanted to try to categorize how many projects are in in agriculture in the 10 to 50 or 50 to 100 or in commercial from the 30 to 100 projects that now, if you do a relatively small commercial project, spending $50,000 isn't real hard.
Right.
So if you got rid of those, well, maybe we're really not talking about, it might be an easy win, but it may be tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
Easy, but not an enormous amount of revenue.
$30,000 in 1970 was.
And that was actually on my list of things to plug into one of the calculators and try to give a perspective.
One new car for the sheriff's
Yeah.
which is not nothing.
All right, very good.
Okay, so egg and lot size zoning, we met once. That's really had to shift its gears, away from that, so the committee did understand that any new residential development is likely currently egg land. I mean, that's just the conversation. That being said, we kind of went through our zoning ordinance of R1, R2. We talked about lending, if I have to go spend $100,000 on land, it's hard for me to build a house that the lending formula then works for, and it also works for my family budget. We talked about our existing ordinance clarification. So some of the voices from the ag department is I could put a residence on ag zoned land, and now I've created residential setbacks to follow that property. They're moving forward, which means like confining animal feeding operations and wind energy and solar and some of those things where we've defined a specific setback from a residence. Someone living on an ag zone partial with a house now is protected with those same things, which creates a mess, which is what's over top of Gary's head right now, is that one property in the middle of a couple different sections. Those people now control, you know, if they have 10 acres, they may very well control 1,500 or 2,000 acres of development, even though they're sitting on an ag zone parcel. So we just talked about that a little bit. We talked about the waiver they sign when they are in ag zoned areas to state, hey, you know, these are the type of nature of operations in your district. We talked a little about ETJ and went down that, kind of rabbit hole, which another group is going down as well. We've kind of changed our mission statement, and we have not met again because we wanted to get through a few things. We changed our mission statement to keeping our zoning, keep our existing zoning with grounded growth in mind. That means preservation of strong agricultural ties while balancing proactive planning approaches that allow development. And so basically, the group decided that we all want grounded growth. We all want to make sure we preserve and respect the people who have made family legacy here in agriculture. And we want to make sure that we are moving forward with that mission statement in mind. I will say that this and the other group really kind of hit on the same thing. I'll jump to the other group in a second. But what we'll be looking at next is we'll be looking at how, you know, planned unit development, clustering of housing, so that way it helps BY out. If we can get multiple lots plotted at one time, it helps BY building out that capacity for what that area could be versus onesie twosie lots. We talked about accessory dwelling units, because that's another thing, you know, if people already have a parcel and adding another unit on the parcel, that may potentially add, you know, some taxable revenue to them. We did talk in some great lengths about the BY water, federal law 7 that basically protects them. And we talked about what ensued from 2007 to 2015 between BY Water and the city of Yankton, as it was important to the conversation. With what happened in 2015, the city being able to annex territory, provide water service until such time that BY can or chooses to provide that service, is a big win for things that are right on the edge of the city. Maybe not so much a big win for outskirts rural development, but that group met once. Truly at this time, we need to get back to that mission statement and we need to go through and look. But what I'll tell you is the next group is really talking about that as well. So the next group is the West Yankton Sanitary.
Sam, on the BY water deal, is that, I think it was his name, right?
Terry.
Is he on your group, in your group?
I've talked to Terry about, a couple different times, filling in, and it seems like there's consistent level of conflicts with getting here, the meetings as well, so.
Maybe we need to meet at BY. I can drive.
Yeah.
At a certain point, a lot of that, I mean, we need some strong buy-in from the ag community. We need to make sure that as we develop ag land, like I said, we are looking at ways to protect those people's livelihoods. I mean, I think we are all realistic that Yankton is gonna look different in 30 years than it did 30 years ago. I think there needs to be some protections with people who work the land and have worked the land, and we need to find that happy compromise. Because ultimately, they're holding the golden ticket. They have the land that could be developed, and why would they release it if they don't maintain some level of assertion that they could still make a livelihood off of it?
Right.
So that group,
I always want to balance that with that land is those farmers 401k.
yeah,
And if we don't permit them to utilize that, it's pretty damn tough on them. They don't have big savings accounts or stock accounts, most of them.
and I will say most of them, they're okay selling it and using it like a 401k. If they know that the other land in their portfolio is gonna continue to be able to be supported by agricultural usage. And so I
you're
think,
right.
so I think that's where it comes in is Jerry's holding this land that he got from his grandpa. Jerry says, yeah, I'd love to sell 10, 15 lots each year for the next couple of years, just to kind of pad my retirement. But I still want to give my kids something that they can rent out, or maybe I want to give them something they can hold for another 15, 20 years, and then they can. So we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about how development has occurred historically. An agricultural family tends to work with a business owner, whether an electrician, a plumber, a contractor, and then together they become developers and they kind of work through that. But I would say right now, we're at a point where I would say a good chunk of the A community is scared to develop land into residential because they know that, one, we're not making any more of it, but two, they know that those residences then now have that grid around them where they can really start making decisions about their operations, which historically haven't had other people's input on. So figuring out that's gonna be kind of this team's, again, how do we respect the generations, the legacies of those families, while encouraging and promoting them to be able to be a part of the development conversation. So that's what that group's working on. I'll be honest, it's kind of derailed at me. I've been trying to get some good articles put together. I did put some information in the notes that day that we could read, about rural development, about different strategies. What you see on the East Coast is bringing back like cottage communities or different things like that. And so just some options, some things maybe we never even thought about because we're not from the East Coast or we're not from those places that maybe have a little less open lands than we do. But it might be something to help us down the road and help BY because it allows them to bring water to one central area and feed one central area and kind of go from there. So
one thing you mentioned there, when you look at other parts of the country that it'd be interesting to have the folks have a conversation about is, I think part of it is balancing the future administrative challenges of county staff. In those parts of the country, you tend to see townships and smaller subunits of government and people involved in those things. Here, we don't really have a culture of a township working together to govern itself. And so as you increase rural densities, a question in my mind, if I were a planner at a county would be, well, okay, well, what expectations would these increased communities have on us as a staff to provide, more urban services or to respond to complaints about incompatible uses? Because unless the county is thinking of increasing the number of paid staff to address that, there's probably a pinch point at some point as urbanization in rural areas occurs.
yeah, so we talked a lot about urban sprawl and kind of how that works. Obviously containing urban sprawl makes it easier on the limited staff. So when, Don, me and Kelly choose to put a house way out here, now our EMS has one more address, one more road to try and go to. When we are part of the conversation, we're filtering it and we're kind of controlling development or guiding development. We can guide it in areas where services may be easier to provide. That does not mean that staffing, but again, if we bring in 10 residents that are all spread out, and that's the point for another sheriff. We bring in 10 residents and we put them in one area, that might not be the point where we need one more sheriff, right? Because of the concentration.
So you're getting me excited.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked about how you're gonna accomplish that? How you're gonna get people to address the fact that they could develop a community?
So we're talking about, I can get there in 1 second.
Pardon?
I'm gonna get there next.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But yeah, so that group did talk about, compact housing, village growth, just some different things. And in the article I sent, it does talk a lot about advice from the communities that applied it, like things they wish they would have known or things. The group just needs to go through those work products that I sent off and we just need to talk about it. But I am very impressed and I with both groups, but I am really more excited and impressed with the West Yankton Sanitary Committee. A lot of it comes, Lori brought Brian McGinnis in, and I think that brought us, we got a needle in the arm with his wealth of knowledge. I think that is one that within a couple weeks, we will have something ready to propose to the county commission. That group has met a total of 3 times, with yesterday being the 3rd. Just double checking that I'm right on that. Yep, so we met a total of 3 times. Started kind of slow. So the first meeting, we talked a lot about, the failed attempts of getting sewer to Deer Boulevard. We talked about all the failures and we beat ourselves up for a little bit too long, probably. We talked about recent advocacy for that. So John Marcourt had started a program earlier this year, couple meetings, fizzled out and died. Kyle with Yankton was a part of the meeting. Joe Noble, the Heineys, Greg Reichen, Kurt Oliver, Brian McGinnis, etc. And basically the existing residents out there do not want the additional cost of their utility bills. We all knew they were going to say that, right? We really wanted to figure out how to implement a sewer district that's financially feasible and that's beneficial to the county. That is ultimately the goal of this group. So we kept looking at Riverside Acres, right? So then we've kind of shifted our focus after the first meeting. We're just going to lay out the legal process to get that done so that way somebody else can pick it up in the future. We left that group. We kind of licked our wounds a little bit because we heard about how it wouldn't be done, couldn't be done, how it had been done. I would say last week, the team really came together. We talked a lot about how, there's no monetarily support to support this initiative. It continues to fall on the back burner. It's an uphill battle. Pumping shit uphill is a hard thing to do. It required a lot more maintenance. We've looked at the plans, yes, they're close, but none of them are really shovel ready. So when an economic downturn would occur, we're not necessarily ready to submit a project and have digging happening shortly thereafter. What is a SMART goal for this group? Is it to look at lakeside commercial? Well, those users don't want to be a part of it. Fish hatchery to the base of Chalkstone Hill. Is that enough? We talked about some of the politics and economics of development in West Yankton. Is it a conflicting interest for the city to support growth outside the legal bounds of the city? Can the pipe from the corner by Mount Marty College actually handle an influx in sewer? Simple's leaving. Does that mean we have additional capacity? Is now better than it was years ago because Simple's no longer operating? Some real talk, does the city actually want to take our waste, or how much can they take? Or they just kind of offered that, knowing that this project will never get off the ground. So that request is made to Kyle, and I'm sure he'll get back to me this week. District 3 at one point had money secured for Timberland Park to upgrade their system, and it kind of never fell through again. If you're relying on existing homeowners to try and get a part of this and advocate for it when they know it's going to cost them more, and that's hard to get that existing users. We talked about some more of the uphill battle. The only way sewer works is with density, and going where there's already development will make a very inefficient sewer system. Because you're going to have a beneficiary, several non-beneficiaries, a beneficiary, you're not gonna have that density, it's not gonna be there, it could never be there. I mean, their septic tank could last longer than expected, there could be even some legal woes of when it's time for me to replace my septic tank. I figure out a way to jab the county and I go back and I just get a new septic tank, or do it on a Saturday when no one's watching, I don't know. So we talked a lot about that. So the Riverside Acre problem is that there's Sandpoint wells and septic tanks right on top of each other. We talked, is DANR gonna be able to come in and say, hey, the smoking gun here is if you guys keep growing at what you've done in the last 5-10 years, by 2030, we won't be able to approve a septic tank. We reached out to DNR, they said, we ain't gonna say that, like, we're not sticking our neck out that far, which is rightfully so. So. We talked about the development dilemma, which is kind of something, 3 of us sit on the planning commission. We are allowing development, or are we as a county encouraging development without our controls? Because we have a lot of controls in the ordinance and whatnot. And then I think we really struck gold. Are we creating Riverside Acre 2.0 off of Highway 314, the old highway? With development moving that way. And we really sat and looked at the triangle that would be made, it's not really a triangle, it's a square now. But West Emmons Road, Highway 50, Highway 52, and then 436, you got a rectangle there. It's on the bluff, it's at the level-ish of Yankton, in fact, it's downhill from there into the treatment plant. So then there goes the woes of having a lift station, of having and you're talking a rather large area that has seen a boom in development requests, that we could get beneficiaries on a sanitary district before the house is ever built. And then at least, again, we didn't fix the Riverside Acre problem, but we didn't create the Riverside Acre problem somewhere else. So the group left the August 3rd meeting about that. We recently just had a subdivision that was requested there. It was Bob Law's, 120 potential residences. With that area being kind of our new haven for this group, do we need to look at seeing if the city would help us by reestablishing some ETJ boundaries? And by doing that, it maybe will allow us to redo our subdivision regulations and state that when in the ETJ, we're trying to build annexed ready subdivisions. So that way the city can sprawl into it without taking on the additional cost of gravel roads that aren't curbed and guttered and that don't have fire hydrants. And because the city's not gonna wanna annex in already established and developed land to then come in and have to figure out how to build a street up to their code and a sidewalk up to their code. So are we doing a disservice by not doing something with that area today? And so we talked a lot about it. We also talked a lot about, the focus of the group is to encourage development. So trying to require total containment systems and other things down below the bluff in the Riverside Acres might be a pretty hard thing for us to sell to the commissioners. But this might not be. We talked about mound septic systems where the tank actually sits above land grade and you build a mound over it. You can obviously just drive your mower over it, but if you tell people, hey, that's what you're gonna have to do, will they be like, okay, well, I don't want to see a mound of shit in my backyard. So anyway, we refocused. And really, I think we aligned ourselves with that if we can look at that area in phases, being that it's on the grade of the city, it's above the water treatment plant, it's not that big. There's not a ton of development already there. That is a strategic move to get a sanitary, to even just dip our feet in the world of sanitary districts and figuring out what that looks like. So that was a really productive meeting. We met yesterday and had a similar meeting, but we didn't really cover a ton. We are still looking for the smoking gun, because we would all like to hear somebody state where are we at down by the river. You know, somebody telling us, hey, you guys are at 85% capacity of septic tanks, or 5 years from now, we won't be able to keep on doing this. And then at least then if we have that number, and it might be 25 years, in which case if we know the number, we again refocus to our, I was called the triangle yesterday until Michael Welch changed it to a rectangle. But anyway, to the rectangle, we can focus there. So Lori is gonna look into Fed 319, which is through the EPA. It's a Clean Water Act related government program. And to see how we can leverage those monies. The application is due on October 1st, 15th, October 1st. See if there's any way we can leverage those money. And right now we're divided. We're, do we want to leverage it to see, hey, can you go do a septic study down by the river? Sewer and municipality wastewater is one of the top 10 reasons for impairments to river and streams. So that might be a compelling argument for them. But another issue is they look a lot at watersheds too lately, as opposed to rivers and streams. And that whole area that we're talking used to be a slough. I mean, most of that land is pretty wet between West Summits Road, 52, 436. So they also are worried about stormwater runoff. They're worried about other urban expenses. So anyway, we're still gonna decide how we want to pursue those grant monies, like what would make the most sense. And then basically our recommendation to the commission is the studies we've done below the Riverside Park are good, but we probably need to figure out a way to get a sanitary sewer study for north of 52, south of 50, from West Summits Road to 436. And we feel that this is that perfect compromise between economic development and strategic planning that we wrote up on the board. Hey, we don't have a comprehensive plan. Hey, we don't really have a strategic plan. Hey, we want residential development and commercial development. That area appears to be large enough that if developed correctly and laid out correctly, we could definitely bring in some commercial. As we discussed, it's far enough away from other businesses in the community that you may see some sprawl, some businesses move off of Broadway to service that area, or move up from downtown to service that community, because we're talking that, just doing some rough numbers, there's how much available acres there, and blah, blah, blah. That could be the next big subdivision for Yankton. So we're working on that right now, as that's the focus.
A map you can show us for this?
Yeah.
Is it the,
There you go.
on the corner of West Bay Village where that sign is 10 acres for sale?
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
Basically, so that's West Simmons Road right there, that's 50, that's 52, and 436 is
Yep.
somewhere in there.
Yep.
Is 436 the Yankton?
No, 435.
475.
There's too much of a ravine between 436, which is that last road when you're going out 314.
Yep.
There's too much, there's a ravine from there to 435 that would basically be,
What's Deer Boulevard, like 437, 438,
yeah, 437.
37?
37.
A mile west
And
there.
436 doesn't truly run the direction it should, because of how
Right.
it does not run
Right.
a true
Right.
north-south like it should. But
Right.
anyway,
On 52, it's where they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up the hill.
yeah. And so
Would you do much below the bluff? You stay on top of the bluff.
say on top of that,
Yeah,
where your lot sign is, there's a sewer main right there.
okay.
And it sounds like it's, we are basing some assumption off of other information we read. 8-inch or 10-inch mains, what we're kind of,
Right.
we're gonna get some confirmation on that.
Sure. Is Bobble and all that land?
No, well, sisters on a lot of it.
Yeah.
So again, that'll be a different landowner and
Names,
land.
law and list.
Yeah, law and list own
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
SWAT.
Yep, Swack owns quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
How many acres are you talking about that whole section?
I haven't done it on
Yeah,
GIS.
that's a It's from West Phoenix Road to 436. That's
You got
4 miles?
you got 8 total sections.
Yeah, 4 miles, over to.
So,
I did some research all morning on that store. And it's the elevation at the intersection of 314 and 50, which is up at the top, is 1,432. The elevation at 314 and City Limits Road is 1,280. So we've got about 150 feet of drop all the way down. And if you drive out that way and look out to the side, it's a natural swale.
Yep.
I'm sure that was the old Indian Trail way back.
It's a belly the whole way.
Right.
And I really think, and we're gonna try and up this a little bit more. That's what we're gonna be working on before we get to the commission. That's a large enough area that you have residential development. You will start to see the gas station, the whatever it is, the casual dining, what is it called, the casual dining, is that fast food, you're supposed to see something else?
Fast casual.
Fast and casual, is the correct way of saying it? I just remember at a city commission meeting, I said something about fast food, and they're like, it's fast casual, but anyway. So that's what we feel like the next opportunity is. We feel like and even to align with Brad, and I have not talked to Brad, so I'm not putting him on the spot. But historically speaking, we've had some discussion of the city's maybe a little risk averse when it comes to changing ETJ and looking at that. And from thinking from the city's shoes, which I sometimes do, and if it's on my petition, I might do it a little more later. Anyway, thinking from the city's shoes, why wouldn't they be? Why would you want to annex existing residences that aren't up to city standard, that aren't on streets that are close or within reason can be modified, or that setbacks are non-consistent, so really this group is thinking, we gotta look at that area and figure out how to make that, when we start approving development in the area, it's gonna cost the developer probably more. And that's whatever, we'll figure, we can navigate that, there's tools to navigate that. But when we don't have Riverside 2.0 sitting right outside of our city, we don't have incompatible usage, we don't approve something that's far out from what that district or area will be in 10 years. We can start really creating a plan, and we can do it in segments, because to Kelly's point, it's 2x4, so we can take a mile section and run a trunk line and do a development, and then take a mile section or whatever we can
Because
afford.
314 exists, might be like this half and that half, you know,
Right.
so.
And that's why we were calling it the golden triangle,
Yeah,
is truly the triangle the first place you wanna
right,
comprehensively cover with trunk lines? And then, like I said, when development occurs in that place, can we make sure that our land use controls are being applied correctly to give the subdivisions a chance to be successful, to give residents what they're looking for? We know that ingress and egress off of Highway 314, we know that South Dakota DOT hates the number of entrances and I mean, I ride a motorcycle on there, and I'm like on edge the whole time, because I mean, anybody has an approach and you're like, oh my gosh. So us going and just letting them replat and not helping manage that might be us not being good stewards of growth in the community. So I think the group is really focused on taking that little map, that the snip that I just showed, and if anyone wants to see it, you can come look at it. And figuring out what could be there, right? Like, I mean, I think we are at a point, you know, I really think even from talking to Terry Wooding eventually, showing them the area we want growth to happen, and taking the proactive, hey, we know it will happen here, it can happen here, and with it may come some businesses, but again, if we're planning it out correctly, hopefully the services are there. And he can be a part of the conversation ahead of time, he can build the capacity ahead of time.
Same thing with the
BY Electric, same thing is, what do they need to be successful if that area did in fact become part of the city, the municipality, you know, with mixed residential and commercial use, what would they need? Maybe they need to start allocating some land for a substation or whatever to make sure that they're part of the plan before we start it. And so I think that's what this group is really gonna push for. I think we all understand, until, I believe the phrase was used, until a weasel is in the chicken coop. And basically it cries wolf down in Riverside Acres and somebody listens and comes down and says, this is an emergency. The residents down there feel that this is an unnecessary added cost. And why should I have to pay for the continued development of a land, even though I've been here, I was here first? And that would just be a lot for us, for this group to probably manage. But future people along in this area, future residents, future economic development in this area, probably be more open because they have yet to make the investment. They have yet to replace their septic tank 3 years ago or whatever. And so that is what we're looking for. And I put Brad on the spot. I didn't talk to him at all. But the city may be willing to help us be part of this conversation.
Well, also, in the lake area, the landowners are on the side of, I don't want to do it. 314 corridor, landowners should say, oh, wow, this will make my land a lot more valuable. So you have an opposite dynamic.
Because we won't, if we do this right, we won't see the storage units blooming in that
Right.
area.
Right.
If we do this right, like I said, the usage of the land will be more value added because the infrastructure's there.
Is there any place along that bluff thing where they just put the new lines where, you know, on the edge of that, a road could drop down south? As opposed to coming all the way west here, there's supposed to be back.
436 is the only possibility.
436 used to go.
Really?
Oh, yeah, there's, I mean, I'm not sure it was much of a road, but
Yeah, yeah,
I've been out on a motorcycle before,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a dirt bike
Yeah.
many years ago.
Huh.
But yeah, and then, I mean, you're
There's
kind
pros
of,
and cons to that, I just, yeah,
yeah,
It'd be nice if you could,
yeah.
but then it'd take an awful lot of dirt work to get that.
Yeah.
Land.
And what's involved in a sanitary, just at a high level, is it burying pipes in the right location so you can tap into it on future developments? And in the meantime, for the next 10 years, of farmers can keep the farm except in one spot. That kind of what that is involved?
I would think it'd be more like you do the corridor and then stub it out.
so you
Don't
follow,
actually build out those.
Right, right.
we're gonna follow, we follow 23rd Street becomes 30, whatever it becomes. But anyway, 23rd Street becomes whatever 30
Yeah.
number. You follow the ditch, the easement
Yeah.
in there. The ditch is still usable for whatever it is usable for right now, right? Like, and then future growth, as long as we pick it the correctly, future growth you'll include, and it is in our subdivision regulations that Gary utilizes. It is in there that sanitary must be discussed in the master plan of the subdivision. So if we already have it there, then we have an ordinance that says that if you're this close to it, or maybe if we gobble this up as a piece of ETJ, we can change some of the reading to be that in ETJ, you know, sewer is the preferred option and must be reviewed extensively. You gotta show us a hardship if you want a variance from it. We discussed that yesterday too, are people gonna try and work around the subdivision regulations by buying 10 acres and breaking it up into 3 small 3-acre lots or whatever? And then we're like, well, we could rewrite it, because right now our subdivision only applies to subdivisions larger than 20 acres. So then we talked about, we could rewrite it that anytime you're replatting 3 residential properties, or you put 2 or more, or whatever you want the phrases to be, we need to at least look at the plan. So then that way, we're not, again, you might be a unique case, you own 10 acres on the bluff, you just want to break off a little bit for your kid, you're on. And because of the nature of your land, it wouldn't make sense to continue to break it up. This might be a one-time all-in done deal. We might say, oh, well, in your particular case, yeah, you guys use your septics and move on. But then Mike comes in and buys 10 acres off of 314. It's an old farm. It's already a residential property. This happened. A guy bought the house on the corner of 314. It was 10 acres or whatever it was, and then they subdivided it further. And right now, it's not really a subdivision. We just replatted some land. So if we rewrite or if we rezone that area with a little different rules, so that way we're making sure that we aren't encouraging the wrong type of development. We're not encouraging half-acre lots with septic tanks with right on top of each other, like. This could be a win for us. This could be this could be how we control this sprawl. Everyone at the county levels has expressed concern about east of town being in the floodplain now, floodway right now. We know that those are gonna be hard areas to develop. We know that that's gonna be challenging. We already got migration happening. You got Westbrook Estates, you got Garden Estates migrating on the other side of West Emmett Road. Eventually, the city is gonna want to put a path along Barn Creek for flood mitigation. We know that that's happening. Now's the time for us to say, hey, where do we want to be at in the conversation? Do we want to wait for it to get to us and then the city's not set up for success? Or do we want to be smart and start helping grow that correctly?
That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
That's,
That's what we want to do. The last thing.
yeah, so I think,
Coordination.
I really think,
collaboration.
I want to make sure I give the people the credit. This group did a lot. And the short time we were given, like we met 3 times for an hour-ish a piece. And then, like I said, the last week with Brian bringing some of the historical information in and District 3 support with a lot of this stuff. I mean, over the years, having access to those files and stuff was huge. This group, I think, landed on something that could be big.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking 8 sections, 640 acres a section. I mean, you're talking, what is that, 4,800 acres or something weird? No?
I wasn't doing the math quickly.
Okay. 12, 18 times 4, so I mean, you're like 40,
5,000 acres.
yeah, 4,500 to 5,000 acres that be the next win for this area. I mean, that could be, we talked, again, you build it, they will come. Even 120 residents in Bob Law's subdivision will change traffic patterns and dynamics enough that a business that is based on traffic counts that wasn't feasible today would be feasible tomorrow. So again, the coffee shop, the fast casual dining is now maybe feasible. We even discussed, there is, and you can correct me, I thought at one time Dave Mingo told me, and Gary thought the same thing, we have a room for another hospitality hotel ish in Yankton. There's some capacity because of NFAA and the lake, and there's some peak season. And by doing this, you could encourage that growth to be out there. Like I said,
I mean, that area is as big as the city of Yankton.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say is it's a, well, first to answer, would people try to find a way to not follow the rules? I think maybe a way to say that is we all act in our own best interest and we tend to act in our own financial best interest. So any challenge where folks may have additional costs in terms of design and installation will of course mean that for some people that feels like a barrier and heavy-handed government regulation. So there's a mix there. This in there sounds like a framework to have a joint jurisdictional area potentially, whether it's the extraterritorial jurisdiction or an agreement about a geographic area where certain subdivision ordinances apply that are compatible with future growth. That makes a lot of sense to me. You said the one word that I think makes it doesn't work, which is to ever grant a variance for any reason would be a way for this to fall apart. So rather than a really large area, it may make sense as you're talking, how does it get into a manageable area? And do we think the market and the property owners are likely to be the sort that are interested in that kind of development? Because I'll tell you, there are locations inside the municipal limits where I have great ideas about things that I think should happen. But I am not the owner of the property and I am not the investor in those things happening. So, the free market is a part of all the best laid plans.
That was our worry is and the group came to that conclusion is lots down by the river gonna just go like gangbusters? Because now, instead of having a direct substitution, I got a lot west of town, above the hill, septic tank, minimal improvements, so the cost is X, Y, Z. And now I got a similar size lot, similar no improvements down by Riverside Acres or minimal improvements. They're the same. Once we impose this, they're not substitutions anymore. This lot will be more money. These subdivisions up here will cost the developer more to play in that sandbox. And to Brad's point, we're talking affordable housing. So we've just tipped the scale, but do we tip it with a compelling enough reason that when you impose it, yeah, you're gonna have people like to point who say, hey, like, yeah, that sucks, right? Like, to Mike's point, you might have people who do say, wow, this helps, now instead of selling it for that price, I'm gonna sell it for this, but it might take a while for the market to move to there and prefer it. It's kind of one of those things of nobody really wants to be the first.
And to answer your question a little bit in a roundabout way about what a sewer district would look like, I think based on the geographic area that a plan settles on, that might look like a connection to the city, or a request to connect to the city earlier, or it may be the sanitary sewer district is doing some of its own treatment for potentially decades, but it is possible to integrate with a future development. So there's a couple of ways to think about it. You may be doing some treatment for some period of time. So the problem with infrastructure is it's expensive, and an extension of infrastructure with the hopes of future development is a big ask for any development, including inside the corporate limits where you see where we think of growth as incremental. You're extending streets and infrastructure in an incremental way. To leave out the payoff at the end has to make sense for the infrastructure, unless there's a subsidy happening, unless there's a desire to buy down the cost of that.
We did talk about a sewer buyback. Gary has experience with that in Scottsdale. Other communities have done that. And I remember I've driven through like small towns in Wyoming and you're like, wow, why is there fire hydrants all the way out here? At one point in time, they said, well, we're gonna invest now and hope it paid off. And based on the shape of those fire hydrants, hopefully that day comes, but.
The good news for them is they built it when infrastructure was much cheaper.
Yeah.
So the good news is all those fire hydrants and stuff was cheaper. The downside is they have to be maintained.
Yeah.
So let me throw some on the substitution idea. It's a good one. Correct. Here's a case where being foolish in the lake area may pay off for us. And that is that if you come down the hill, you see the Three Sons campers with the swimming pool in the back, which is really nothing more than a big septic tank. Then you see the storage units. You drive down Deer Boulevard, what do you see? Campers, trailer park, housing development. Do I want to drive by? Do I want to have my relatives drive by? All of that on the way to my brand new house for Thanksgiving dinner? Chances are the answer is no. That's what happened in Sioux City with Gateway. Because people didn't want to drive by the Icky John Morrell plant coming from the airport to get to Dakota Dunes. That's what happened. So the substitution isn't really an equal trade-off. If we get ahead of it now, and we develop that area properly, that square or rectangle, as Sam puts it, you won't have those eyesores and you won't have the hick factor. And therefore those lots will be worth more. So if we do it right and get ahead of it, we avoid the foolishness that took place and will continue to take place. It's gonna continue in the lake area.
So to add to that point, would you anticipate then the developers would look for not necessarily entry level housing, but maybe a step up or a
Exactly.
community that has
Yeah.
some of both, like we see out on the Garden Estates area, you know, there's some lower cost stuff in there, and then next to the creek areas, that there's some nicer houses there, you know,
Right.
not, you know, big houses, yeah,
Yeah.
but, you know, you have a mixed community there.
Depending on how you do this. You know, we all kind of know, you buy your house, you're scraping by, you end up
Yeah.
in that area, and then you do that for a while, and you trade some equity, and maybe you've got some,
Step up.
you step up, and then now you just open up the next level for someone else.
Yep.
And then maybe you trade 3 houses in the course of your life, I don't know, but, then maybe this community is the third. Maybe this is the one that you take your years of hard work, your equity, you move up, and then you watch the rest of Yankton kind of available and,
Well, all the houses along the bluff are nice houses.
yeah.
Yeah, if you, I think probably that anything upscale.
And I
lake
can't,
area is already developed.
I can't tell you how many people that have asked me what the hell commissioners were doing when they left Lake Area and go to campers.
Oh my, yeah, me too.
I mean, it's just every one of the campers could be a $500,000 house.
Right. But it won't be now. No way.
So, like I said, I think we're gonna find more pitfalls as we talk. I think we're gonna have, but I think out of. I mean, we went at this, and I'm just gonna go back to the group. We went at it as, well, it's been looked at before. Pumping shit uphill is a hard uphill battle. Has anyone ever talked about treating it down here and having a sanitary district that's then treating their own, and then it's right there, and blah, blah, blah. So we're like, well, maybe we need, again, you gotta approach a problem from and this group truly did. And then we thought to ourselves, that problem's not going anywhere, but we're gonna make another one if we don't at least have this conversation. So that's where this group kind of landed is, this is where we actually spot something. And again, we gotta be very careful, because to Brad's point, we were set out to figure out how to help economic development, and by imposing more regulatory actions, you tend to stall it for a little bit. But again, is the carrot big enough? Then when at the end of this, that yes, it might stall, yes, some people might feel some pain, but will it stall it long enough that we do get that anchor business? Maybe a hotel hears that we're ready to go this way, and they say, we are ready as well. Or maybe you hear from some other form of investment that wasn't traditionally looking on that side of town, that all of a sudden says, we're ready to go now, if you guys are ready. So I think we need to make it known that that's something we're looking at.
And certainly the balance of development includes saying, here are areas that are appropriate and infrastructure exists, and there'll be additional infrastructure in the future, and the terrain, soil types, the watershed here is appropriate for development. And I guess I wouldn't say that I think subdivision regulations or zoning is antithetical to development. But I think it's about matching compatible uses and encouraging the uses that are appropriate in areas. And so that means identifying as a community where it's appropriate. And then it also does have it comes with the responsibility in those areas not identified for growth to listen to what folks have to say and say, we've had that community conversation, and this 3-lot development here doesn't match with the plan that we've adopted. And I understand your 401k in your land here that I plan to divide into 3 small lots isn't something that's workable in our system. However, whatever a larger minimum lot size is something that's available. It's not saying no, nothing is available. It's saying not everything is available to everyone everywhere. But that's a challenge for elected officials and for employees to get the support of their elected officials when you say, you know, wanting something is not the same as having hardship.
Here, did we get this economic overview of Yankton County out?
Yeah,
Everybody's got one.
Yeah.
You look at the medical one, there's. You do really some great things with, oh my.
And actually, this
Right
group,
planning.
the group actually talked about this. Is this a natural progression for Avera? You know, is this a natural progression for Mount Marty College? Is this a natural progression for some of those strong partners? You know, Elkhorn Valley Bank going up near Menards, that's cool. But when if the population starts moving this way, does another bank end up moving up
Absolutely.
to this side of town to follow, right? And so is that the natural progression is and to Brad's point, and every time I say something, Brad's like, hey, I gotta make it so it doesn't sound like it came from me. But to Brad's point, historically, we maybe haven't quite been on the pro plan development. We've been on the development
Patchwork quilt.
Yeah.
quilt, and I know we're trying to get there. Is this the area that we really buckle down on?
I think it's always been about money.
Correct.
So let me piggyback on Don. Because the elephant in the room is where's the money gonna come from for this trunk line that goes up 340? And that's what stopped every initiative in the lake area. So the answer is we have two very senior senators in this state. And I don't know if you've read Lindsey Graham's obituary. But Lindsey Graham was not popular in South Carolina because he was big on fence. He was popular in South Carolina because he got Charleston Bay dredged using federal government so that they could accept large container ships. That's what he was popular for. And so what we need to do is put ourselves in a position where Sam's done a beautiful job of outlining this project. We need to put ourselves in a position where we have a marketable plan. A marketable plan. And I don't know if I'll be around when we end up with that marketable plan, but I am not afraid to John Wayne the door in any senator's office. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And it can be done. And the right time to do it is the next time we have a major recession. But not wait until we have a major recession. Do it continuously every year.
Update the plan.
Update the plan, continue the pressure, ask questions. If you can't do this, what can you do? How should it look so that we can market it the next time? And so that we're ready with a full-fledged plan the next time the government starts throwing money over there.
I was driving down the interstate the other day and DC has a sign up that says lots for sale in Vermillion. I mean, it's huge, you know, it's a big billboard, right? You know, whether we open up 4,100 acres to development or we open 1,200 acres up for development, trust me, we can market that.
Yeah.
And to Don's point, we have strong medical premise over on that side of town, presence on that side of town. It would only be logical to continue that campus with, given the right support. And as the campus expands, does other auxiliary or compatible uses come in? Again, I think about my busy nurse schedule or whatever. Yeah, you can eat the hospital food, we'll take the hospital food, sometimes pretty good, but something else over there that's quick, easy. I think about Tuxedo, we're not too far from that intersection, we're not too far you add something as it sprawls, you got between Aztec, Tuxedo, L&M Radiator, Prince Hydraulics, you got a bunch of high school kids looking to spend mom and dad's money on food when they can leave. I mean, this sprawl makes sense.
Yeah.
We just gotta get it formatted the correct way. We have to answer there's still a lot of questions that are left unasked that we haven't thought about. But I think if it's the pleasure of the commission, or I can come to the commission and state this, I think this is how this group makes a lasting impact.
Good job.
I don't know how it could be connected, but I think our culture's moving towards more of a, executives that hire up people working at home.
Yep.
My son, moved to Dallas. And, if he leaves at 4 o'clock to go home, it's a 20-minute drive. If he leaves at 5, it's an hour and a half.
Yep.
drive.
Yep.
And
You see,
to him, all of a sudden, a nice area where you could have your office at home and have the facilities to do it would be huge.
oh, my.
Well, and industries that haven't come to town maybe will eventually. So a lot of places have, co-working spaces where I work from home, but I come in, I use the high speed, and we did, it was downtown, it was called working the Mo or something, I don't know what it was called. Anyway, again, I think it worked well, but when we bring that population of professionals in, there's gonna be some demands when you bring the population of professionals. I mean, I hear it all the time, we hear we want the third grocery store. How can Vermillion have a drive-through Starbucks and we have to walk into Hy-Vee for ours, And, anyway, this will help that sprawl. This should, we just gotta make sure we do it right. And we just gotta make sure, and right now, dirt isn't being broken, there's not very many basements being poured, like, now's the time to do it because yes, because then I know when I buy the lot, I know I'm gonna have a monthly surcharge. I know I'm gonna have a utility bill. Versus I built it and now it's like, oh, by the way, or the worst case is we let development start happening. We end up with the riverside where there's just not gonna be enough density soon enough to make this feasible. And so today we could probably get by with that. But with that being said, we need to put something in place soon. So that, because again, if we don't have a protection in place and you have uneasy developers, they may pull the trigger on submitting development requests in that area before we have, which has happened a lot recently, where somebody comes in and says, oh, you never thought about this, let me put a request in to do that project in your area, and then we have to throw around this ugly M word moratorium, and it becomes the whole thing.
Gary, what's the zoning tool that we would use to achieve Sam's vision of that? That area. What sort of zoning tool would be best so that we can keep ourselves from getting in a situation where it's 5 years from now and we still haven't done anything?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple options. Once we decide on sizes and things, then you have the tool to basically rezone as needed, just like we did with the rural transitional. Commission can make some of those choices and decide they want to move a certain direction with that particular area. Brad talks about GIS. There's a lot of things you can do with the GIS to help that situation also. And so there's a lot of options available there.
Guy that's building out, by us. Across the section line. I got $80,000 a lot. And how would they ever sell that in here? Well, he's got 6 houses up now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a year, not even a year since they started building.
Yeah, I just talked to 2 medical professionals at Avera day before yesterday, and they just moved here from the East Coast. Because Yankton is Yankton and they like it here, and they're building out houses out near you. Both of them. One's a doctor and one's, some of the, I'd say, group that I don't understand. So,
So I guess you're in charge of this group, you're on the commission. My group is, we're gonna pursue the Fed $319. We're gonna try and determine what the strongest usage case is. Because again, we don't wanna put in for, hey, will you guys tell us that Riverside Acres is dangerously close to being out of development opportunities? And in which case, if we play that play, what does it do? The current residents just say, cool, we're out of development down here. I got my house, my whatever, life is good. Or do we need to use them to help us up here in this watershed that does have a couple creeks that run through it and some sloughs? And help them, help us make sure that we're making the right choices and how we.
Coyotes, you get coyotes too.
yeah,
Not really coyotes, but blind coyotes.
yeah.
Go,
Development
I
activity,
agree.
human presence will tamp that down a little bit.
My dog hears them at night, I know that.
I don't think there was so.
But, so
I
that's,
don't know, I'm of the mindset that path that you're on is that I like it. I respect it, personally, I really like that concept, and, Riverside Acres to Mike's point, you turn down Deer Boulevard and you start going down there, you've got all the businesses on the left and you got some on the right, and then you got the trailer course and you got the campers and that whole area. You've got to get back in there a ways. Oh, hey, there's some nice houses out there, right? Then everything else has been around for a while, developed like years ago. And it's affordable and so on and so forth. You got a camping area down
We
there.
get all, most of our ideas put together and packaged and have some. Does District 3 have any program that could assist us in marketing?
Not off the top of my head. But we do some checking in that. Were you marketing to? Just the general public or
What market are you talking about?
what market are you? Like, here's our thoughts.
I'm not marketing for somebody that has to have food stamps. I'm marketing for somebody that,
You're talking about down the road when we're developments are going in. Yeah.
I wonder too, if we need to get a group of the developers in a room. And maybe some of the real estate professionals, the specs, the
Yes.
Nathan Strongs,
Absolutely.
and we need to
The
sit,
bankers too.
the bankers, and we need to sit with them and say, this is what we're thinking. And have them tell us all the pitfalls. You might hear from the developers, you won't sell a lot. Nobody's gonna pay the, whatever, by the time you get through there, you won't sell a lot. And you might hear from the real estate agents, I could sell a dozen of those tomorrow. People who still wanna be on the skirts of town, still want some country convenience, but city utility or whatever. And you might hear from bankers who say, hey, it's easier for us to appraise places on, sewer services, or it's easier for us to get a true and actual value with that. I think that's where the group needs to go, is we need to leverage some of and that's where this group was very open several times and said, we are not experts, so give us an expert. And so I think we are at the point where we do need to get to the next round of experts and see. You might hear from a developer that they'd be willing to focus this way. I know the airport curve is filling in. I don't know how long that's gonna.
What's on the other side of the road? I was gonna ask you about that, on the other side of Penina, I think,
That's gonna be annexed in, or maybe not annexed in, but that's all gonna be plotted out eventually.
yeah.
So
Infrastructure.
this would probably be helpful to,
Yeah.
so the way our subdivision ordinances work is if you're adjacent to the corporate limits, if you plan to subdivide, you subdivide according to our regulations, and annexation is how you access services. So that's our incremental growth. So we move out one step at a time. If you're touching the corporate limits, you subdivide, we integrate, we annex.
Yep.
That's just,
Yep.
sort of slow and
Yep.
steady.
Yep.
Plotting.
Crawl, yep,
Yeah.
yep, makes sense.
Yeah.
So is that active? Is that in talks, in works?
I would say that
What's
there's
chicken say?
almost no parcel adjacent to the corporate limits where there hasn't been some version of that conversation.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
whether it makes sense for the owners
Yep.
at the time.
Yep. Yep.
Or what their investment priorities are.
Sure, sure.
I mean, I think you gotta go back to what Mike said. I mean, shy of getting some sort of federal, who's say, golden egg, whatever I'm trying to say. Then you've got to have a developer that's willing to put the money out. And then you gotta have a landowner that's willing to sell to a developer. There's a lot of dominoes.
And some profit to be shared along
Yeah.
all of those
Well,
steps.
see, it's important, like where they're building out by
We
us.
don't like it.
I think all that land around out there would be saleable.
Yeah.
I think, don't repeat that I said this, but probably the worst farmer in the county farms quite a bit of it. And economics are gonna take him to cashing in on it, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it seems like sewer potential out there to make those last more valuable.
way more money.
The developer and they all pay services and have more people on, would maybe limit our payment that goes up every year,
Right.
right?
I
Spread it over more, huh?
Yeah,
I mean,
I just think. To Brad's point is, we're doing adjacent, right? But we know that if we don't do something as a county in this level, it will be adjacent to the city eventually, and it won't be up to city standard, it won't be, and then we'll be having the same conversation we wish we would have.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
we,
what-
we know there's several types of business that will not build on a septic tank.
Right.
So we are saying, and that's to Brad too, is if those businesses are compatible in the area, then we need to give them compatible infrastructure, so then that way they at least want to, and like I said, at one time, the Yankton Mall was a big old slough, and so was Fox Run Golf Course, and
it was a cornfield.
yep, and then look at it go, and we can do this, we just gotta figure out how to do it, and there might be a developer, and there might be a real estate agent, and there might be a few key people who say, we're willing to take this challenge on, because we see a shared vision.
Good.
I don't know if we have those people, I tell you 110%, I am not that guy, I don't have enough money to be that guy, but there might be 3 or 4 people who are like, we share that vision.
Well, the Tramps and Kirby Hofer and the, you know, and they're, whoever comes behind them.
But what is the infill left in Kirby Hofer development over between 29th Street and 31st, the airport curb? I'm not sure what infill's left.
He took care of that.
Jerry knows,
Yeah.
the answer's 30.
Yeah. He just 30 lots of.
The last 30,
Yeah.
okay, so then the last 30 is open there. Where is the next 30 gonna go? And again,
Other side of this.
So, and
more than likely.
another thing to think about, along, and when we think about future land use, one of the things we think about is how many people are going to be here in 20 or 40 years. And I don't know if District 3 had done any preparatory work for the previous round of the comp plan, but it's probably not a bad idea to think about, predicted future residential growth in line with what we would anticipate population growth to be as well. So that's probably something to think about. And we've done that in our comprehensive plan in terms of outlining land.
Go through this, read this. It's worth it. It's worth your time.
So
It'll answer your questions.
that's another thing to think about. The number of acres that we're talking about, it is more than the next 40 years worth of growth for
Right,
the community. I mean, it's a smaller area, which is helpful because it's hard to plan for expansive, explosive, exponential growth. It's much easier to plan for the sort of growth we anticipate, and that helps you figure out the number of acres we're probably actually talking about.
I think Harrisburg probably does, they've never developed very big. Now they're way overgrown.
Yeah.
Okay, next to where that. Yeah, it's hard to.
So
What's the next step, Sam?
the group won't be meeting next Monday, mostly because I'm in Montana, and then we'll probably meet the following week. We'll hopefully have some more guidance and maybe some ideas from District 3, how to leverage that Fed 319 money, whether it's the VR smoking, try to make it our, again, you know, there's no guarantee we get it. So we could try and make it our smoking gun below the hill, or we could try and make it our shot in the arm to get this rolling a little further, because we could have maybe potentially use it to get some studies done on this.
I looked at it enough to know that the federal money for South Dakota runs through DA.
Okay.
So at least we have a contact.
Yeah.
So we'll have more answers by the next one.
Yeah, but so we'll meet in 2 weeks, maybe have some more answers. Group will probably try and prepare for that grant application and kind of how we want to do that. Don, do you want us to come present to the commission and just ask for permission to apply for that Fed 319 money?
Yeah, probably should, yeah.
Okay, so then we will need to get that on the commission early in September. So that way we have time to say, hey, we want to apply for it. This is what we want to apply for it to be used for.
Yep.
And this is an update on the other thing, so we'll need to be on the agenda. Kelly would love to speak on behalf of this project.
No doubt. You did a really good job of that.
Yeah, well, I could speak too. I just think we should ask, you know, does it appease the commission for us to go after this? So that way it's not.
Yeah.
Cats out of the bag, so.
I've not given an update to the commission. I mean, you kind of handled that, and I understand that the other group is getting close to wrapping up. I don't know if an update coming soon.
I want to get in front of the public so that they know what we're doing.
Yep.
I want to thank you and your group. You bring a lot of excitement to this thing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's good. If you want a presentation at the next commission meeting, Don, we can kind of just quickly lay out what we've been through, 3 major projects, and the one we're most excited about. Let Sam present that. We try to give an update of
Yeah.
kind of where we're at in the whole thing. Then here's
Yeah.
great, good opportunity to be, you know.
I
we're
think the
excited about.
finance task force is going to meet or be on the commission next month.
Yep,
So
Just tell me when we need to be there. And
Yep.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of questions, and I'll be honest, if they ask a lot of questions, I'm just gonna have to say, hey, we still getting stakeholders together and we're still, but this is the early rendition and, you know, to Brad's point, is it all 4,800 acres? Probably be nice, but
yeah.
ideally it might be that first 1 mile from West Simmons
Right.
Road and
Yeah.
making sure. Cause again, we gotta walk before we run here, you know? And so anyway, but we show them that we feel that, you know, this will be our greatest liability if we don't do something with this area. We'll be having the same.
Look how fast North of 23 has filled out already.
Oh, yeah.
That did not take long.
I think one of our real challenges is to make it not a city versus country zone.
Yeah.
Where we have collaboration and everybody knows we're pulling together.
Make sure I throw Brad's name around a couple of times.
Yeah.
Brad is active in this conversation. We'll make sure, so, but yeah, I think that's. I'm excited about that, I think that's why we kind of pumped the brakes on the egg and lot size things. Because that's the opposite of what we're looking for, is to go bat residents against agricultural landowners. We are looking for strategic growth that is value added, that involves infrastructure that, you know, and maybe the county can reap some benefits on as the city sprawls into it.
So we can still do that.
Yeah, we're gonna meet again, I got more excited about this and my ADHD said,
Go this way.
go this way, so we worked on that first, so anyway, so.
Good.
Cool, Well, I got a 1:30 meeting, so I.
No, good report out there. And I'm not, we don't have anything else covered during this meeting. So I wanted to keep the report out to those three, and we'll meet again in a month. For the follow-up, on the report out at that time.
You need me to send out the meeting invite in a month, so that way you.
Yeah, you
remember to be there.
know, I'll get my emails for you. The auditor who's sitting right beside you, that knows how this stuff works.
You can't, all I have to do is ask.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Sounds good.
I got that.
I'm not gonna do everything, I'll just do an
Yep,
overview
yep.
and attachments.
Yep.
It's great.
We have any city of Yankton residents and, willing to sign my petition to put me on the ballot for city.
Yeah, I tried yesterday and Stan said, you can't sign it.
And if you don't want to, I do have enough signatures. I just wanted to fill out one more sheet. Just sign it, so.
So, Tom Daff, we got $1 million for Murray Creek.
Yep.
That was an interesting story, because in those days, if the grant was under $1 million, the government got to announce it. If it was $1 million over, the senator got to announce it.
Yeah.
Bill Janko was pissed off.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Imagine
You're
that.
still on tape.
See you there tonight.
Thanks, Ed. You
We're
and
gonna
I
go eat some dinner, so I'm ready for the long haul.
It's,
Thank you.
doesn't matter what you said. I'm trying to.
We're gonna be reading